Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Cox.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll. Commissioner President Wyatt.
Present.
Commissioner Vice President Webb.
Present.
Commissioner Andrews. Commissioner Andrews. Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Dr. Harris. Commissioner Hembry. Commissioner Hembry. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Malone.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Smith. Also present this evening, we have Mr. Rashawn K. Hassan, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Cameron E. Cox, Chief Financial Officer, Board Secretary, Dr. Mark Williams, Chief of School Management, Dr. Elizabeth Filipatos, Chief of Student Services, Chief Carletta Jones, Chief of Human Resources, Chief Vashawn L. Hill, Chief of Marketing Communications, and Dr. Danielle Mastrogiovanni, Chief of Equity and School Improvement. Also joining us this evening, we have Mr. Ramon Rivera, Labor and Litigation Counsel. I'll now read the welcome. Welcome to the Business Meeting Board Retreat of the Plainfield Board of Education. Members hope that you'll find this meeting interesting and informative. We thank you for taking the time out to attend. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the media and public consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided to the Courier News and Tap into Plainfield on Monday, August 18th, 2025, to be advertised on Friday, August 22nd, 2025, and also provided to the Plainfield Public Schools District website, the Plainfield City Clerk, Police Department, and Plainfield Public Libraries for posting. Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. All right, welcome, everybody. Welcome. And thank you to the Plainfield Board of, thank you for being present at the Plainfield Board of Education's board retreat / board meeting for the month of August. I am President Wyatt, and I am here to share a few remarks before we begin our board retreat. We appreciate you being here, those in person and those online. It is with great excitement and intention that I welcome you to this year's board governance retreat. The theme for this retreat is purposeful collaboration and principled governance, which reflects the core of what we aim to achieve together as a team to grow, to learn, and to become the best board that we can be individually and collectively. I spent a great deal in time planning this retreat, taking into account my own experiences as a board member, along with the many conversations I've had with fellow commissioners, administrators, and stakeholders. The feedback has been invaluable, and it has fueled my commitment to creating a space where we can openly engage, strengthen our governance practices, and deepen our understanding of the critical role we play in shaping the future of Plainfield Public Schools. Our purpose here is not only to unify and empower ourselves as leaders, but also to foster an environment where we can learn both professionally and personally. We are here to challenge ourselves, grow together, and most importantly, work collaboratively with the administration to move this district forward. Our collective impact begins with the decisions we make, decisions that affect not only today's students, but generations to follow. This retreat has been designed to ensure that we leave here better equipped to lead with integrity, transparency, and accountability. These are the values that sustain great leadership, and they are essential in the work we do as decision makers. Together, we have the unique opportunity to set the tone for the future of education here in Plainfield, and an opportunity that I know we are all ready to embrace. Let us take this time to reflect, engage, and most importantly, to grow. By the end of this retreat, I am confident we will be even stronger as a board, unified in purpose, and equipped with the knowledge and tools to move this district forward with the kind of leadership that will leave a lasting impact. Thank you for your commitment to this work, to my fellow commissioners, and I look forward to an impactful retreat and the continued success of our work together. Commissioner Webb, would you like to read a welcome?
Sure. First, thank you, everyone who took the time to be here this evening. It is with esteemed pleasure that I welcome you to the 2025 Plainfield Public Schools Board of Commissioners Retreat. Each retreat is unique in its participants and its focus, but one thing remains constant: our purpose. Our purpose always and will be to serve students and focus on sustainable educational achievement. To be successful in this mission, we must lean into purposeful collaboration. Collaboration rooted in mutual respect, positive engagement, and a shared commitment to excellence across our district and community. As I reflect on the retreat agenda, my hope is that each commissioner takes full advantage of the opportunities before us. Leadership brings many challenges, but it also offers us the invaluable gift of growth. The chance to engage in professional development as a team strengthens not only our individual capacity, but our collective ability to govern with purpose and vision. I am grateful for the expertise of our local, state, and national presenters who have joined us. Ensuring this retreat is a well-rounded investment in our board's continued development. May today's work inspire us, ground us, and propel us forward in service to the students of Plainfield. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Vice President Webb. I'm also going to share the purpose of the retreat, and because what we read were our welcome to the board retreat, to our fellow commissioners and the public, but also the goals for the retreat, and then I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel matters. The purpose of this retreat is to unite and empower our board to lead with purpose, accountability, and transparency. Through thoughtful collaboration, we will strengthen governance practices that ensure strategic oversight and effective district operations. As board leadership, we emphasize the importance of continuity and collective responsibility so that despite changes in board dynamics, our focus remains on the long-term success of students. This retreat affirms our shared vision of student-centered leadership, where every member plays an active role in advancing district progress. Together, we will build the foundation of cohesive, principled governance that drives the district forward with integrity and an unwavering commitment to student achievement. The goals for this retreat are unifying the board to foster a cohesive, collaborative team that works in alignment with the district's mission, values, and vision. Strengthening board superintendent relations, clarify roles, expectations, and evaluation processes to build mutual trust, accountability, and effective collaboration. Building effective governance, develop strategic practices that ensure continuity, high performance, and resilience through transitions or turnover. Promoting ethical leadership, equip board members with tools for ethical decision-making, transparent communication, and sound fiscal oversight, ensuring all actions support student success and long-term district goals. And enhancing board member readiness, prepare every board member to serve effectively through ongoing professional development, continuous learning, and a culture of improvement focused on students' best interests. I'll now entertain a motion for us to recess into executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Malone that the board now retire into executive session. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Yes.
Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried.
About 10, 15 minutes.
Board anticipates being in executive session for about 15 minutes. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb, seconded by Commissioner Malone, that the board now resume this meeting in the public. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. Please let the record reflect that while in executive session, we were joined by Commissioner Hembry as well as Ms. Khalif Shabazz, General Counsel.
Dr. Waite, you have the floor. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
I know everyone is so enthused
Yes, we are.
to be here
Yes.
on the Friday before Labor Day weekend at 7:07 p.m. All right. I shall do my best to keep y'all up. All right. Am I good? Okay, great. So, that's not me. Oh, okay, we good? Great.
Good.
So, I like to put this up there so that people, who have questions can answer them for themselves. But this is who I am. On that slide, I think the most important aspects of it would be that I am a mom. So, like many of you who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here on a Friday night, it's Labor Day weekend. I left my kids with a trusted adult to be here to come talk to you folks. So, that said, I'm gonna need you to give me a little promotion for that, right? Woo! The energy in here is, all right? We need to shift it a little bit, okay? So, the most important part of that, like I said, is I'm a mom. Then I think the most relevant part of that is that education policymaker should actually say former. I think one of the bullets there tells you that I was a mayoral appointee to the panel for educational policy. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it is the school board or advisory panel for New York City Public Schools. Because when Bloomberg came in 2001, I want to say, 2001, he was able to successfully get the state to give him control of New York City Public Schools. And in its place, in lieu of the school board, he created this advisory panel where there were 9 mayoral appointees. And then some people would say it did, a lot of people would say it didn't. I can tell you that for my time there, I did my best to think about putting the students and the families of New York City Public School first. Because y'all are an elected board, that means y'all took y'all good time, hard-earned money, right? Sometimes time is money. And you volunteer to do this. I know for a fact that everybody here and the folks who couldn't make it are on the board because you care, are on the board because you care about Plainfield. You're on the board because you're invested in it about Plainfield. You're on the board because you're invested in Plainfield. You're on the board because you want to make a difference in Plainfield, right? And so I'm here, I was invited here to come support you all in doing that, right? In doing that, right? And to make sure that we understand that we're all playing for the same team, right? The structure of that looks a little different, but ultimately, we are all playing for the same team. That said, there's one person on this staff that got 9 bosses, right? That person on the staff should always feel like they are a part of the team. And the 9 people that are the bosses should always make the person that got the 9 bosses feel like they're a part of the team. Because ultimately, we're all here to serve, right? Same community?
Right, right.
One band, one sound?
That's right.
One team, one vision.
Say it again?
One team, one vision.
One team, one vision. I like that. I'm also an associate for Hazard, Young, Attia, and Associates, and that is how I come before you today. Because the other part, I'm a 10th grade global studies teacher. I should say that. That's the most important part. It was the best job I've ever had. I've had a number of jobs in the Department of Education, Human Resources, Dean, all that stuff. But being a 10th grade global studies teacher was my favoriteest part, right? It's also the most exhausting part. But let me tell you what it means. It means that my weight gain time is on fleek. So it means that y'all got to talk back to me sometimes, and you got to play, because if you don't, we'll be here till 10 o'clock looking at each other, waiting to do the activity that's on the screen. Okay?
We're gonna do that now.
All right. So, I want to start right now with a quick icebreaker. You guys have Post-its. I put Post-its around. If you need more, let me know. They should be with an arm reach.
Grab 5.
5 of them. 5 of them. Everyone's got something to write with, right? We need some more?
Should be okay.
I got you. What?
Thank you.
I got you 5 right there. You got that? Okay. You got to play too. You have to day Sorry. I got to prep for my presentation tomorrow. It'll be quick, and then I'll do it. Okay. All right. Everyone got 5? Okay. So what I want you to do right now, and I'm going to do this too, is I would like for you to write down how you identify across these categories, and then wait for further instructions. But you can rest assured, Attorney Shabazz and the other attorney's last name? Rivera. I am not going to break Title IX and ask anybody to disclose any identity on this screen, okay? Okay. So if you'll do that right now.
Can you repeat the instructions? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I would like you to write down how you identify across each of those categories. And Madam Board Chair, Commissioner Wyatt, and Vice Board Commissioner Webb, no cheating.
We had the pleasure of attending the Board Member Academy, the inaugural Board Member Academy. I earned 3 degrees from Howard University in that time. I didn't, but that's what I'm telling people. That's what I'm telling people. I said degrees, let me be great.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling everybody.
President Fredericks, President of the Board of Trustees, give us certifications, please.
That's the backup word.
All right, everyone good?
Yes.
No. See, this is why I needed to be more explicit. You have 5 pieces of paper because I need you to write 1 on every single.
Yeah.
Okay? Thank you. Besides Commissioner Webb and Commissioner Wyatt, how many of you are familiar with this exercise? Okay?
Okay. Absolutely not. I'm positive. I mean, we
Okay, while it looks like folks are done writing down on 5 individual pieces of paper, just to give the context behind this exercise is called peeling the onion. And so when you have an onion, you peel it, right? So in the context of this, I am not asking you to disclose anything you've written on these papers. Only you will have this information. What I am going to ask you to do, are you ready, Commissioner?
Yes, I'm ready.
What I am going to ask you to do is take a moment, think across this list, and think about this question. If you were asked to peel or get rid of any one of these 5 identities, which one would it be? Do it now. Move it to the side, crumble it up, put an X through it, whatever you're gonna do. You got the plate too? Okay. Everybody done it? Yeah? Do it again. Next layer of the onion.
Yes.
God bless you.
That part. That part.
You good?
You about to start sweating now.
It's tight, right?
I think the two gentlemen to my left are struggling a little bit.
Okay.
It's no struggle.
Peel it again. Next layer.
Get rid of another one that we just wrote? Mm-hmm.
Woo. I'm gonna give y'all 30 extra seconds for this. Yeah. It's tight. But what if I told you that this is what you ask people to do every day? What if I told you in the district that you all are responsible for governing, this is what teachers ask students to do every day? What if I told you that in the district you govern, this is what administrators are asked by the district every day? And what if I told you this is what the district is being asked of every day? Every day. You got it. We got 2 left, everybody?
Yes.
I know, it was hard. Make a choice. Last one. I know, ma'am. I know, Commissioner, Mrs. Hembry. I see how you looking at me now. Everyone have one? Yep. Everyone left with one. I'm not going to ask you which one of these you are left with, but I am going to ask you if the identity in your hand is one you feel real strong about, right? It is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So real quick, I'll take 2 responses. How did doing this make you feel? I'm anxious to
Uncomfortable.
know how you feel, Commissioner Johnson.
Question a lot.
Huh?
It made me question a lot. I mean, I'll just get one that I crumbled up.
You don't have to.
I don't have to, I'm just saying, one I
Okay.
crumbled up was, my immigration status. So 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but today, I have to think about
It made you think differently. Made you think differently. Another?
It makes you feel uncomfortable because you have to battle with what may or may not be more important, whereas all of them essentially are important in their own way. But when you have to peel those layers away, it's almost like you're battling with yourself internally.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would say vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerable. Say more. What does it feel like to be vulnerable?
Just, I mean, don't really know how to explain how I felt, except saying vulnerable, you know, like, felt like you really didn't have any control, like you just kind of had to just,
You didn't like
Yeah.
being forced to have to make these decisions.
exactly.
Because you felt like all of these pieces of paper make you one. They're your part of your composition. So here's the question I have for you. If the identity someone holds to the core is one that we would know by looking at them, how do we create inclusive spaces to welcome them? And I'm talking to all of you because guess what? You can look at the superintendent, but I went on your website last night and I saw that structure chart. There is only one person that had to report to 9 people. Because the 9 people is at, because I have a feeling that everybody looks at Superintendent Hassan like, ta-da! Whatever happens, he did it. But guess what the community sees? We know. You, 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 and 1, 2, 3. You look like you were gonna say something, Superintendent.
Yes, I will. So, as I got to my one, I went into more of a state of reflection, and my point of reflection, you know, me asking myself internally, this one that's so important to me, do the people around me see me show up in that way? Like if you ask somebody else in this room, would they say, all right, that's the thing that Rashawn selected, and that's a wonder for me. The second, as you talked about various members of our organization having to peel away layers of themselves, I felt a bit relieved because this is something that we talk about a lot in the organization, but it's not always fully embraced. You know what I mean by that is, there's some things you can say to individuals, you can tell them that this environment is open, it's welcoming. But to a certain extent, it's only as welcoming as you allow it to be for you, which I think sometimes can be a struggle. And I know there's things that we have to do to make sure we meet our team members halfway, we have to be intentional. But I wonder about that trust sometimes and the baggage sometimes that our team members have from their trauma. And whether they truly know and understand that we don't want you to peel away the onion or the layers of yourself, because that's what makes you you, and that's what makes the district a great district that it is.
Well, I think what you're getting at is what I'm about to ask you. Because here's the deal. In this instance, it's race. But let's replace race and disability. Let's put in whatever your last thing was. If the thing that's on your paper is what's most important to you, how do people know? And is that the lens through which you see and govern? Is that the lens through which you are able to connect with people? Is that the lens through which you're able to hear? Because if it is, because if Dr. Harris's most important thing was immigration status, right? And if Mr. Cox's most important thing was gender, y'all could be talking about the same topic, having completely different conversations. Because your perspectives are totally different. There are some people who prefer to draw. There are some people who prefer to listen, draw on, my youngest, she loves to sketch. Give her some colored pencils and a book, she'll go to town. My eldest, how you doing?
Hi.
My eldest, she would prefer to get on a computer and create all of these different types of things, right? Using technology. There are some people who like to listen to audiobooks. They can read 14 audiobooks a month. I'm somebody who likes paper books. I gotta hold it, I gotta feel it, I gotta read it, I like to highlight it, I like all of those things. We are both reading, but we have different preferences. We both are having the opportunity to consume the same information, but we might be hearing different things. And here's the question, the biggest question, and possibly the bigger question for you as a board. How do you know when y'all are engaging in discussions that y'all even talking in a way or communicating in a way that your colleagues can hear you? You don't know unless you take the time. I think that's very difficult. And in our leadership roles, we have to try to find a way, which is very important for this retreat, so you're doing awesome. But as leaders, we have to find a way to work in a collaborative way where we can understand each other. If we can't first understand each other in our varying personalities, then it's gonna be hard for us to work as a team. Because what I may perceive as me being very welcoming, and I'm speaking for myself, could be perceived as one of my fellow commissioners as not being so welcoming. And so, but if they don't understand who I am or what's important to me or my values, and I don't understand why they may perceive it that way, it's gonna be difficult until we try more to understand each other. But that comes with spending more time together, and that comes with communication, and that comes with building and trust and making sure that we continue to come together in environments like this where we're learning and growing together. Because we can do our individual work, I feel like, but there's so much of that we can do because we're still a team and we have to operate as such. No one member of this board can move forward as an individual. So it's good to work on yourself, but we have to work on our collective efforts as a board and our governance as a board. So I think that's difficult, and I think that this is a good start, and we've done some group work, prior to now, of course, but I think that peeling back some of those layers, to Mr. Hassan's point, you don't really want to peel back all of your layers, because that can get a little, that can get a little crazy, but you do want to reveal a little bit, you want to be a little more of yourself and share a little more of you with your fellow colleagues in order for you to work better together.
Yeah, so, and to continue with Hane's point, something I do to try to make connection and resonate with commissioners is I try to share what my thoughts are ahead of time. I try to be proactive and give a perspective that I have, both a personal perspective and then somewhat objective. And I do that so at least they know the common place that I might be coming from, to see if they connect to that or not, or then that offers them an opportunity to offer contrast in a safe way. It's letting them know I'm not argumentative. I say that, and it's like I'm looking to get some feedback and get a general understanding, but also see what you feel. So more or less, be more transparent, I guess, about what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling on something, but welcome that same vulnerability, I guess.
And I would offer that a good way to situate that is for folks to just be upfront about how they like to receive information.
Yeah.
And the ways in which they like to communicate and the ways in which they like to be communicated with. Because I know I don't read minds, right? But I do know that if there is a vote coming up, I got 25 things from the job that pays the bills, right? And we got this policy coming up that the deck is, the policy itself, right, the regulation itself, is 200 pages, right? And you reached out to me asking me a question, and I don't know if this is a real thing, because I'm seeing some of your faces, I'm making this up as I go along.
No,
okay?
You're good.
And you're asking me what my thoughts are, my thoughts are, I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet. My thoughts are, what do you think? My thoughts are, what's really important? How is this gonna change? My thoughts are, has anybody reached out to you about it from the community? Have you heard anything from the community? What's the pushback? Who's served by this? Who could be harmed by this, right? Those are all things in which you guys can discuss. Only if, though, you know that that's how people like to be communicated with, right? And so that's what we're here to work on. We're here to hit these goals, have these conversations, and hopefully move it along. Thank you. So I'm gonna ask you guys this prompt. In that red folder, there is a document that looks like this. This is participant workbook. You don't have to write in this. If you prefer to write on a piece of paper or you prefer to type up notes, because you like Google Docs, you like to be able to go back, do it, whatever feels right for you. But I wanted you to be able to have something to write on if you're like me, like putting pen to paper. This is a reflection prompt. Now, this is the important part. With the current composition of the board as your reference point. So with this board, with the 9 members of this board, 7 of which are here, right? Think about a time when the board worked at its best. And jot that down. I'm going to set an alarm and then I'll check in with you all to see if you need more time. We good? We got about 30 more seconds. And it can just be bullet points. More sentences if you're flowing. I see you, Ms. Smith.
Got a lot to say. I haven't been here in a while.
Okay. Now I'd like you to jot down your thoughts about what made collaboration at that time effective. then the last prompt, which is, what behaviors built that trust? Okay. Looks like we're deep in thought and reflective. I'm gonna ask us to come back together in about 20 seconds. Okay. So sharing is optional. I may call on you, you tell me if you're gonna share or not.
Which reflection prompt?
Huh?
I said, which reflection prompt?
Which one would you like to share?
So I'll start with the first one. Think about a time when the board worked at its best. So my thoughts is when everyone was aligned with one mission, it was more about passion about the kids and not politics. I feel like once politics came into play and personal attacks became more of the conversation and the progress and the progression of the school district, the dynamics were completely broken.
Others on that first prompt?
I would say there, and I want to say, I mean, I'm in my first year of my second term, so I want to say maybe about my second year, because the first year I, like other people in their first year, was just really trying to understand your role. But I think that there was a time where the board communicated more, and the board spent more time with each other, whether that was at regular board meetings or committee meetings, or just spending time outside of board meetings at different district events. I feel like the more we communicated and the more we spent time, the more we asked questions and received the clarity that we needed, whether it was on board agenda items or just general questions about what's going on in the district, it helped us as a board work better together as a board. Once you lose that communication.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's stop there.
No comment.
Posted file.
My first year on the board, it was a lack of respect. We couldn't get anything done. No respect, no trust. It was a
That's the
mess.
next activity we're gonna do. For this one, I want to know.
No, I'm telling you,
Uh-uh.
this is the time the board worked at its best.
Mhm.
When everyone had respect for each other, respect for themselves. And trust. The respect comes first before trust.
Commissioner Malone? I don't hear you. You said no comment?
I'm going no comment.
You said no comment? Commissioner Johnson? No comment? Mr. Hassan?
To give a specific time, I would say maybe around, for me, ideally, shift started to occur closing out the 23-24 school year, but I think it became noticeable in the early parts of the 24-25 school year, specifically.
That period of time.
That period of time.
Was when it was But what specifically about it? Was it any of these things that you heard? All of these things that you heard?
Yeah, so for me, I think there was more consistency around the meetings, gatherings. I think also over that shift of time, we saw less participation in some of the outside events, like conferences as an example, which it provides a different opportunity for board members to connect, and us as a collective, like outside of the public meetings. It says something like, when I'm learning with you, I'm growing with you, et cetera. And I think at times that may have led to less consistent meetings, or not having meetings as frequently, committee meetings, et cetera. I think that may have led to at times there being unequal access to information.
Well, y'all are steady pulling me into this next piece. The reason why I started here is because I wanted to ground us, and I'm watching my time because I know that Regina is next, and I want to be ready when I want to give her all of her time. But I wanted to ground us in thinking about that, because ultimately what I'm going to ask us to get to at some point this weekend is thinking about the ways in which we can achieve the goals that I've heard you all talk about: increasing respect, increasing trust, and increasing collaboration, increasing consistency. And I feel like it does all start with being able to communicate with each other. But you do have to have trust, right? And in order for me to trust you, I gotta feel like you respect me to do that. Because it doesn't matter if you're saying great things to me, right? Think about it this way. Do you like steak? Okay. What's your favorite type of steak? Ooh, you said.
I don't flavor it.
You said what? Medium well?
Yeah,
Strip steak, medium well, with that good Kerrygold butter on? Do you caramelize? Mushrooms?
Yes, I've had mushrooms.
What's the side?
Side would be a sweet potato.
With brown sugar and butter?
Yes, ma'am.
And the vegetables?
Vegetable, cream spinach. Probably ain't the best option.
That's okay. That's what you want.
That's what I want, exactly.
So if I brought that to you, you're gonna tear it down, bust it down, right?
What is it?
If I brought that to you on a trash can lid, would you still eat it?
Is it a new trash can lid?
What type of trash? New York trash? Are we in Plainfield or New York? Say that, I'm joking. I wouldn't eat that.
Because that's what changed it, right? Nothing changed about the meal. That is still his favorite meal. What changed was the way I brought it to him. Right? That's what changed. The way I brought it to him. So he couldn't receive it because I brought it to him on a trash can lid. Right? We got to get this together. I hate that I'm on camera, but I don't care that I'm on camera. We got to get this together, because meeting consistently has to happen. These people are paying their tax dollars. At the top of the board, they want to know how you're spending their money. Y'all are accountable. And yes, I know you did it for free, but you knew that when you ran. I get it. But we got to get this together. Because we got to have meetings, because the school district needs to be able to move stuff forward when it's summer. There are contracts that got to go. I know in New York, these people would be bothering me about school bus contracts and this, and now we got to do an emergency this and emergency that, because stuff got to move. It moves, even in the summer. Right? The district has to go forward. Would y'all be cool if Con Edison decided, I don't feel like providing services in July?
PSE&G.
Huh?
PSE&G.
PSE&G, thank you.
We knew what she meant.
PSE&G decided, I'm gonna take July off, storms hit in July, your power down. It ain't on. But it's all good because you're gonna get your TV shows and stuff gonna come back on in August. We gotta get this thing together. So let's see if we can do it. Nope, sorry. By naming the trust gaps. And this is gonna be the last thing I can do before Regina comes on. So I am going to ask you to take 2 minutes to write down 2 to 3 things. I know y'all are like, God, do you have a legal pad? Cause that's what I need to write down my stuff. I don't have a legal pad. But we can probably talk about 2 to 3 things in the next 10 to 15 minutes that we have, okay? So I'm gonna give you a few minutes to write down 2 to 3 things that you can name that have eroded the trust. Not specific. I don't want to hear that Mr. Cox took your Canada Dry at the board meeting
It's a serious
in
offense.
February.
That is a
That's
serious
not what I
offense.
want to hear.
That is a very serious
Okay.
offense.
Round concepts and no shots. No shots.
Took my Canada Dry.
I knew you was gonna say something about that Canada Dry.
Okay. So what I'm gonna actually ask you to do is I'm gonna ask you to share. I'm gonna ask the 3 of you to share. And I'm gonna ask you to share.
What's your 3? What's your 3? Oh, I just said 3 because I had 3 on the
I'm supposed to give it to you.
Built trust.
For the purposes of this, I want y'all to talk about the road trust. Whatever you can.
Oh, then good, because this is,
Huh?
I went straight to reception.
So should we talk on the mic or, I mean, just talk? Recorded anyway.
Oh,
They can hear it. So, like, help me build trust with people's ability to keep matters confidential. I'm not sure how confidential. It seems as if things have been kept confidential. I'm not sure. We have to trust that, that process. One action that I really trust was commissioners questioning notion that we need to hold each other accountable. Not something I really feel is required. I think having mutual respect. It's going to undermine that process. I don't participating in it, like not coming to a meeting because you don't want that to take action, so to speak, making a protest, or something like that. Making like quid pro quo. Those things are necessary. It's like, people want my participation where it's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I think overall,
So, yeah,
what
that's the
the
rules of
lack of
action that I
communication
think
is what you're driving force in everything, because if the communication is not there, no matter who, it could be me to the board, it could be Mr. President to the board, or to me, it could be to you or to the government. But if there is a lack of communication in general, then that starts to erode the trust no matter where it's going. No matter where it's coming from. And exactly what you said, like at times, there's just individual agendas being pushed, and this creates respect. Individuals, though, I think it's a collective. And then just inconsistency. We talked about it, and we just talked about it at this meeting. And just I'm glad that she spoke to. There needs to be
So did everybody get to share?
person, so you can
If you can hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. Thank you so much. Did everyone get to share?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Would each group be willing to name a couple of 1 or 2 items that came up during your conversation?
And regarding the actions that Bill trusts is the ability to keep things confidential as much as possible, seeing and hearing some of the things that we have to hear, and then also realizing that through time that those things probably haven't been shared or left that room was rewarding and satisfying in a sense, because I felt like the people in the room understood the gravity of maintaining that confidentiality, so that helped me recognize that there was some trust opportunities amongst the group. Actions that eroded trust, though, were the questioning of people's integrity in public forums, or just outright for political gain, and just undermining the process by not participating, maybe in meetings and things like that. I think that was something that helped erode trust somewhat.
Thank you.
So lack of communication, we focused on one dynamic or behavior that eroded trust. So lack of communication, we agree that that's across the board in many different variations. And then lack of respect, speaking to Commissioner Webb's point regarding not the board as a collective, because I think generally we can all agree that we're respectful, but sometimes there are individual agendas being pushed, and that causes disrespect in certain instances. And then inconsistency, and that was largely in part to like ensuring that we're showing up to meetings and actually having our meetings and being engaged and present. Or it could be inconsistency with communication, but communication was a big one for us.
Commissioners Malone Johnson?
Yeah, so, I said, personal agendas in the way of special students, and then, when people say one thing and do another. You already did this one.
I can start with one action that eroded trust. Disruptive use of social media, making a public spectacle out of the board and board decisions. I feel like not only did it erode trust amongst the board, it also eroded trust amongst the board and the community.
The public.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to add to one that builds trust, leaning in with the lens that seeks understanding and not being defensive.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have written all these down, and they're gonna fall. They keep falling, right? So maybe I'll try to grab tape so they can stay there tomorrow. But I actually am going to build off of your contribution, Dr. Harris, because leaning in to understand, there's a difference between hearing and listening. I might hear you speak, right? In the words of now I'm gonna age myself because this is circa, what was Friday?
95,
When?
1995.
1995. Smokey, Chris Tucker. Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? You may hear the words coming out of my mouth, but are you listening to me? Right? There's a difference between the two. And then there's a difference between listening to be able to counteract so that I can listen to what you say, and by the time you finish letting that last word roll off your tongue, I already got my rebuttal ready. Versus listening to understand. Versus we have a disagreement back here, and then we come out here, and I'm thinking everything is cooking curry, because this is what we discussed. But you're gonna get up on this dais, and now I'm getting the Spanish Inquisition, right? It sounds like some of those things have happened, and that has eroded your trust. And so my hope is, by the time we leave tomorrow, we can get the trust back on track. Not that, and hear me clearly, I have zero expectation that y'all are going to hold hands and run off into the sunset by 4 o'clock tomorrow. But I'm gonna tell you what my expectation is. And it's anchored in why you are all here on a Friday night at 7:59 before Labor Day. It's because you have a commitment to serve the community. And so because you have said commitment to serve your community, I'm gonna lean into setting the expectation that regardless if you don't like me, we're gonna move in a way that centers the best interests of the students of Plainfield, New Jersey School District. And we're gonna make decisions in a way that centers the best interests of children and families in Plainfield School District. And you are gonna govern in a way that provides the tax-paying residents of Plainfield Public School District transparency about your decision, even if they don't like it. Because sometimes you have to make the hard decisions. I was on a panel when we still had to vote to close schools. Do you understand what it was like listening to kids perform, 65 parents get up and tell why that school had to stay open and how that was their kid's last stop? And if we closed that school, that it was, they didn't know what their kid was gonna do. And still having to close the school, that's hard. That is hard. But that's why it's even more important that y'all are on the same page about governance, because if you center the most vulnerable populations, everybody else is gonna be all right. Even when the decision ain't popular, everybody else will be okay. But just because it might be the right thing to do, it don't mean that you don't have to explain it to the community in a way that makes it make sense to them. Remember, everybody isn't privy to having 2 attorneys explain and break stuff down to them. So when y'all are making decisions and you have the opportunity to have the mic and speak from the dais, you gotta communicate in a way that makes sense. When I teach my doctoral students, we write I write so my mama and them can understand. These other academics, they know. I don't have to go on and use all the academic language and pontificate. Now, I can, right? I can do that. But that's not who I need to get some of the things that I am writing. When I'm writing for an academic journal, I do all of that because it won't get accepted. When I'm writing for Ed Week, I write like I'm talking to my mama. You all have to govern and communicate in a way that makes sense to the public, so that even if they don't like it, they can understand that from this one band, one sound, one vision, it was the best decision with the information you had at the time for the community. So my hope is that we will get to a place where all of these, we can look at these and we can come up with solutions that we can each commit to doing, actions we can commit personally to taking, so that y'all can put the business of the school board above politics. Because at the end of the day, if I'm coming to talk to you about the fact that my kid isn't getting the services that they need, or that's on that IEP, I don't care nothing about what the 80 you got, 90 you got going on. If you can't get together to give me voice, make me feel heard, help me understand, and provide me a solution, then what are you here for?
That wasn't a question, because I wholeheartedly believe that that is what we're here for, and that is constantly communicated. I think what happens is it's things are presented to us in a frame as if we're not, right? And I think that's where the misconception is that that's all we're here for, is that if something is missing, we're here to hear it and fix it.
And I'll say this. There are times, to quote my Uncle Jimmy, and I get this from Dr. Yolanda C. Ruiz, calling him Uncle Jimmy, James Baldwin. Sometimes I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. And so when you tell me that you're going to do X and you move like Y, it's very difficult for me to believe you. So if this is what has happened, clearly not here, not now, not tonight, because Regina's up, right? But at some point, y'all have to heal and mend what was broken. But above all the personal stuff, everybody got to be here to do what is right for the kids. So that concludes this section of my sessions, and Regina is up.
She there yet?
She's on. She there?
Because we have a scheduled break.
We have a break scheduled, so if she's not here and you guys, what'd you say? She's not, okay, so we're scheduled for a break.
I did ask her, in transparency, I did ask her to give me 5 to 7 minutes. I said I was running behind, so I'll let her know. How much is the break? What time should she come back?
She could come back at, I mean, it's 8:05, so if she wants to get on 8:15, because they're going to
Okay.
the bathroom.
Just an FYI, I received a text message from one of the community members who's online. They said they couldn't hear some of the dialogue. And I know it's directed here, but I just want to
Oh,
share that.
I'll
So-
try to use my, I'll
Yeah,
try
they were
to use my
asking
leader
for
voice, my teacher leader voice. Okay, sorry.
I want to hear from mine.
Or I can probably just grab what I got.
Go to the bathroom, so.
walked in the room, he was passing them out. Like, you get some chips, you get some chips, you get some chips.
Enjoy the great evening.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was great. Hi, Miss Mary. So good to see you. Everything's good. He's good. He's good. Yeah, getting ready for dinner.
And the postman story on combination.
I can't say he ain't even resting. Like that's what me tell you. That's how bad. That's how much I can't even. Yeah, I've been checked out, Miss Henry, but I'm checking back in. I like this stuff. This is something I want.
Got it?
We're gonna be talking now. I'm gonna come help you knock on some doors. I got you. You got my word.
I'm doing.
Oh, all right, that's what I was saying.
Listen. I just got a new one, so you probably ain't even noticed it.
And I think that's like for water.
I had water in there, but I just drank it all. So now I'm putting my ginger ale in there since Candy's still.
You flew coach.
I ain't want to sit there.
You little, you
Going in there. I'm like, she shouldn't have used that as an example because
No, I'm trying to pay for
that's
my break so
actually
they
a
give me my
thing. Don't be taking my ginger ale.
Yeah, right? She knew.
You would think she actually did know. Where they at? They ain't? All right, we got it.
What kind of breakfast you gonna have?
I have no idea. I didn't set the menu. I just told them what time to have it available.
Beef bacon, turkey bacon, sausage, waffles.
We know it ain't gonna be no pork.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Good evening.
Hi, how's everyone tonight?
We're doing
Hello.
well.
Awesome. Good to see everyone.
Good to
Thank
see
Good to
you.
be seen, good to see you as well.
Right, so. Everybody doesn't have an agenda, but I'll just read briefly real quick, and then I'll read briefly real quick what I have on our agenda, and then you can introduce yourself. But we have Regina McCotter Jacobs Esquire. She is NSBA, the National School Board Association Executive Director and CEO. She will lead an engaging session on redefining board leadership and strengthening the link between governance and student success. She will challenge the outdated idea of stay in your lane, encouraging board members to see themselves as active strategic leaders. With a focus on ethical, transparent leadership and purposeful collaboration, this session will equip the board with practical insights to govern with integrity and align decisions to long-term district success. Regina, along with Howard University, NSBA led the inaugural board member academy that Vice President Commissioner Webb and I attended. So she was also a main facilitator and presenter of that board members academy. And with her expertise and insight, being an attorney, as a board member, as the executive director of the National School Boards Association, we thought that it was very fitting to have her join us and for us to soak up all the knowledge of which she can share with us and have her here for our board retreat so that it can be as impactful as possible in our pursuit of practicing effective, purposeful governance in the spirit of collaboration. So Virginia, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I will just say at the outset that since I've been in this role as CEO, I don't get to do these as often, so I really appreciate the opportunity and honor to be before you guys tonight. So why don't we jump right in? We have a limited amount of time. I want to make sure that I leave some space for questions, comments, concerns that you might have. But as you're perhaps, we have a PowerPoint together, and as you're loading that, I would say that, you know, I'm sure you've had an opportunity maybe see my background, but, you know, having served 10 years myself as a school board member and then legally representing families and education in the education space. Again, I'm delighted to be able to do this work with you and look forward to an opportunity to continue down this path with Plainfield. So why don't we jump right in? I will start with sort of the intro around sort of defying sort of in a way this stay in your lane conversation that we often hear from boards. Certainly there is a role for boards and a role for the superintendent that is very clearly defined in some ways and not so clearly defined in others. Since I've been at NSBA, I really wanted us to take the approach that is less about board members staying in their lane and more about what is their lane and how they best serve students in their districts. So who's gonna do the presentation, or are we uploading it? I wanted to also acknowledge Valerie Cardy, who is here in the setting from NSBA, and she is, she does everything at NSBA, so she takes the opportunity as well to support our members in our local district, so feel free to always reach out to her as well. So I'm gonna jump right in. We have some data in here. I'm not gonna go through all the data, but I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how we sort of map out our work at NSBA. So starting with our agenda, we're gonna talk about or sort of do an overview of the 8 characteristics of effective school boards. We're gonna do a very brief data walk. The data walk is there for you to take a look at outside of this session and get a deeper sense, if you will, of what your data looks like from an external perspective. So we had our CPE, our Center for Public Education staff, do the research. Jing Hong Kai, she always does the research for us. Anytime we go into any district or state, we make sure we talk about what's unique to your state and or your district, so that you have a real picture of what's happening. We want to develop an understanding of the key work of school boards. Again, there are several components to that. We're going to focus a little bit on accountability, but essentially the board's work is vision, accountability, policy, community leadership, and board superintendent relationships. And so we won't cover all of that in 1 hour, but I wanted to give you an overview of how we, again, do our work at NSBA in the hopes of supporting you as a local board. We're going to talk about the team dynamics throughout the presentation, so that how do you work together, not just what is your role as a board, but collectively as an organization, a collective body, how does that look when you're trying to make some tough decisions around district-based matters. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I want to give you a quick overview. Mission, vision, and tagline for NSBA. Our board embarked upon a quick a review, if you will, last year, looking at the mission. And of course, again, this gives you an opportunity to see where NSBA is nationally. We have been very committed to this work and continue to do so, but we want to make sure that board members are equipped with the tools that they need. And so everything that we do, all of our programs and everything is designed around that. And with that being in mind, we want every single school board to be able to support the work in their district in a way that reaches the full potential of their students. And of course, NSBA is known now for transforming public education board by board. Looking at as you think about this session throughout, and we don't have to go through it at this moment, but if you would throughout kind of throw to me in the chat, if that's a function that's available, what is the word or sentence that you expect to get from the session? This says from the session today, but I'm thinking more broader. What do you expect to get out of professional development for your district? What do you want to walk away with as a board when you think about the professional development that you get? Because it's an investment, and we want to make sure that we give you the tools that you need to be successful. And so who is Plainfield? We took an opportunity to take a look at your district. Of course, you know, we're always looking and who they are and what you present and how we can best serve you. So we want to take a quick look at that. So looking at your vision, which is really important to us as we think about aligning the work of national, you have said that you wanted to develop an enriched community of caring and creative lifelong learners. And so what does that look like for the board in partnership with your community? How are you held accountable for a safe, inclusive, and nurturing learning environment for all students? And so one of the questions that I would ask you and challenge you is, does all really mean all in your district? You know, oftentimes we say each, so that we're clear that we're not missing any one student. And so if you say all, you have to be prepared to define and identify that all really means all in Plainfield Public Schools. Next slide. Your strategic priorities. I'm assuming and hope very much that the board is clear about that. But as we were thinking about this presentation, it was important for me to understand what your priorities are. And you have these 4 categories around climate and culture, teaching and learning, finance, which is one of the key components that we're going to talk about, and then community engagement and communications. In looking at your student demographics, just say from the methodology that's still used by the federal government and in Department of Education, rests in terms of how we collect data, but may not necessarily be what we consider to be the best way to describe some of our students and our families. We always consider our students and families, without regard to their background, that they come to us as an asset, not as problems to solve. So I want to say that from the outset. But essentially, you have a district that is a district of children of color, economically challenged in many ways. And so that usually in and of itself bring some challenges to the ability to educate these children, and their families may have some challenges that also contribute to the difficulty. Looking at, and so how does that play into what we do at NSBA? So we have 4 main drivers of educational excellence. We also call them educational equity. And so when we look at funding, the questions that we present to boards and ask you to really challenge yourself on, and we believe through research that if you focus on these 4 categories, and of course they are, there are components to each one, that as a board, you will be successful in student outcomes in your district. So for example, when you're making those critical decisions around your budget, questions about how is it developed and how do you determine what students, how student funding happens. Do you have a zero-based budget? Do you have a needs-based budget? What does it look like? If you know that literature, if you know that reading is a difficulty in your district and your superintendent presents a budget that doesn't address that, how does the board make those tough decisions about approving a budget process? Another one is how opportunity and access to high-level curriculum. And oftentimes when we think about that, we think it's things like AP and IB, and you'll see in another slide that is much more extensive than that. But what is the board's role in ensuring that students get what they need around rigorous coursework? And then, when I was on the school board, I often tell this story that when I first got on the board, you had to live in a certain zip code, if you will, community, to even get access to AP courses. And admittedly, I come from a very huge, large county. Prince George's County, Maryland, is a large county. And so certain parts of the county had access to AP courses and others did not. And certainly that is not equitable. And so what is the board's role in making those tough decisions? But what does that mean for governance and your and the outcomes that you have as a board? And then what is the board's role in ensuring effective educators and high quality teaching is happening in the district? And of course, safe and supportive school climate, looking at discipline data, but more importantly, looking at all of these categories in a way that's really effective for students. And so that brings us to these 8 characteristics of an effective board. I won't go through all of these, but we wanted to make sure that we included them so that you could read them on your own and even talk through them in terms of what does it look like. We often use the 8 characteristics of effective boards to create board self-evaluation. So are you evaluating yourself every year? And what is the framework that you're using to evaluate the board's effectiveness? And so, of course, being focused, laser focused on student outcomes, having high expectations for students. When we think about how students are doing in a district, if you don't believe they could do well, you're not going to set the stage for them to do well. So the board has a critical role in that, working with the superintendent. You'll often hear us say governance teams. We don't have a framework where we say the board is in one area and the superintendent is in another. We talk about governance teams and making those critical decisions. But the board must hold the district accountable. The board's job is to hold the system accountable for outcomes. And so oftentimes you find yourself, in the mantra of wanting to get along with the superintendent and team. That's really critically important, that board superintendent relationships matter. But what matters most is holding the system accountable. And there are ways to hold the system accountable as a board that is not contentious, has a framework in place where you're automatically going to get responses back to certain questions. You're going to automatically get reactions to how the system is doing. And when it's naturally in your board agenda, it makes it easier for the board to hold the system accountable and for the superintendent to know what the expectations are. So effective boards are really laser focused on that work and make sure that systems are in place in the district to ensure that you're getting reports on personnel issues, you're getting reports regularly on how the transportation is doing, you're getting regular reports on outcomes around testing and things like that. And so you build it into your agenda throughout the year, and that way the superintendent knows expectations and you as a board knows what's coming to you to say, and I would call it a data dashboard, for example, in terms of how the district is doing. So these are a good way to sort of challenge yourself and evaluate yourself on whether or not the board is effective. Let's talk a little bit about funding. So as we think about the impact, critical impact of funding in the district, it's one of those areas, it is the area that determines much of the outcomes, and where, people often say that where you put your money is a policy statement. You can go to the next slide. Where you dedicate funding tells a lot about what you care about. And so as you think about that as a district and as a board, that is going to be critical. And so how you get to the final approval, if you will, of your budget is also very important. So some indication says that it is a clear indicator of equity in districts. So I think that's probably self-explanatory. But when you think about it, if you have a district of a school building of 400 students, and you just say, okay, well, therefore you get X number of teachers, is that really the board focusing on how funding is happening in the district? Is it by formula or is it by needs of students? And so thinking about where most funding comes from in this country, it's usually coming from state and local dollars. Of course, some of us get funding from our federal government as well, but the large share comes from state and local funding. And so when you think about Plainfield, the question the board must ask is, what is your process for budget review and approval? How often does the budget come to you because it's time and you go through that sort of traditional number of hearings that you have? Some districts, I know when I was on the board, the superintendent had community-based hearings and comment time, and then the board did too before we approved the budget. So you want to hear from your public. You want to know what's, what are the things that they are concerned about, but it's also an opportunity to educate. How often have you had parents come and advocate for something in your board meetings, but they hadn't been educated, so they don't know that, you need X number of reading specialists because the data is telling you that students are unable to read. So the board has an obligation not only to inform the public, but to also educate the public and also themselves around what's important in funding. And again, holding the system accountable for the outcomes that have been designated in that budget. You're not approving a budget just to pay bills. So we do a great job paying bills, but what are the outcomes that we're looking for student success? Next slide. And so when we think about the intentional allocation of resources, that's what I'm getting to when I say it's very different than a formula-based budget. Intentional allocation simply says that the board will ensure that the data drives the approval of the budget. And so again, keep in mind that we're talking about accountability. And how does the board work together? How are you collectively, you've heard of the forming, storming, and performing sort of outcomes. How is the board, as you and your colleagues working together to ensure that the budget and funding are at the levels that they should be? If you get data, when you get your achievement data back and then it's time to vote on the budget and it does not match with the achievement data, then I would venture to say that the board is not meeting its fiduciary duty, and we'll go back to those 8 characteristics to determine whether or not the board is effective. And then, of course, here's some data about the increase of funding and the impact that it has on student earning capabilities. And this all comes out of data that supports, how funding happens, and then how the funding drives student outcome. As funds follow the child, it's going to be very specific to each child so that they're getting what they need. Very important for the board. All right, slide. And these are just this is just some data that we pulled in terms of your per pupil expenditures. I will tell you that the per pupil expenditures for Plainfield is actually high. It's higher than the national average. And so the question that I would present to you is that if you are spending the money on each child, now I can't speak to the economy in Plainfield to say, yeah, that's about right. Because that is determined by community and you will have to make that determination. But the question that the board must ask the superintendent and ask yourselves is this investment doing what we expect it to do? And if it's not, the board needs to hold the system accountable and say, why not? And what should we do differently? And what are the outcomes that we should expect based on this allocation of resources? So that's the critical piece that you have to ask yourselves as board members in Plainfield. Next slide. And so as we think about your, again, your district expenditures, New Jersey's average and your average are about the same. For the state, as I said, you're a little higher than the national average. But again, the question that the board must ask is, do we see the return on our investment? And that should be a very critical question for you. Don't let up on that. That's a very critical question. Are we getting the return on the investment? So as we look at, again, this is just a data slide with the diversity of your district, how you're made up, the number of schools and things like that. We put these in your presentation so when you get it, you just have a sense of how to tie the information with the data that applies. So the next area we want to talk about pretty quickly is teacher quality. And we always see that as highly qualified teachers. And why is that important? And why does the board care? This is one of the critical areas where people like boards they're not in the classroom. So, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal because you're responsible for ensuring that highly qualified teachers are in your district and that the most qualified teachers are standing in front of your students. And so we know that in districts where there's high poverty and unfortunately, where students of color are more likely there, that we get the least qualified educators. And that's across the board. It's not just in some districts, it's across the country. And so that is one of the areas that NSBA has decided, even though it's not a quote federal issue, it has been on our priorities list to talk about teacher quality, teacher shortage, those kinds of things, so that we're more helpful, if you will, either through research or advocacy to support districts in this conversation. So, for example, looking at your student-teacher ratio, it says 16:1. I don't know if that's actually happening. A lot of districts have the average or the desired student-teacher ratio and don't often meet it. But the point here is that you want the most qualified teachers in front of your students. Now, New Jersey is not a right-to-work state, if I'm not mistaken. And so I bring that up because oftentimes when you have a not right-to-work state, you have teacher unions that negotiate a lot of these things, and so you have to be mindful of that. Well, one of the areas I often talk about, we usually pay more for national board certified teachers. I know many districts, I know ours did, pay teachers to get their master's degrees, and then there was absolutely no correlation between national board certified and those master's degrees to student outcomes. And that's unconscionable. We should not be doing that. We should ensure, again, that the return on the investment is directly correlated with student outcomes. And so I would challenge the board often to, again, hold yourselves accountable, ensure that you're holding the district accountable for these kinds of outcomes for students. And so when I first got on my board, we had a $18 million grant. And we all know that merit-based pay is very controversial, particularly around unions. So there was a volunteer aspect to it. But the point is that we made sure that national board certified teachers, while they did get a bump in their pay, they were assigned in the most challenging schools and with the most challenging subjects. Those are critical decisions that some would say to the board, that's day to day, that's not your role. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can hold the superintendent accountable for ensuring that highly qualified teachers are standing before your educators. Don't get me wrong, I get the challenges across the country. I know it's hard to staff these roles, but it's still the board's position and the board's responsibility to make sure that those are the questions you're asking and those are the expectations that you set. All right, so we're gonna jump to school safety. When we talk about, we often think about target hardening, we think about security, we think about those things, and as we know, that is very important. It's critically important to talk through it. But when we look at it as at NSBA, we started to embark upon this work around school safety. We spent a lot of time talking about, yes, infrastructure is really important. What do the physical buildings look like? How are we setting the stage for students? How do we make sure that students with special needs get what they need so that they're safe and things of that nature? Of course, every district is required to have a crisis and emergency management process and policies. And then we thought really important though, of course, cybersecurity is a big deal now with all the technology, with AI, et cetera. And I'll take a minute, NSBA is working on a project that we hope would be helpful to you all in districts across the country, which is school board governance specific, AI specific training and professional development. And we're hoping to do a certification on that because boards definitely need to have more information around student privacy and what that looks like and how that's going to be supportive going forward. But the whole child is what we really want boards to focus on, because we believe if you look at it in that vein, everything else will fall in place. And so we challenge boards to ask yourselves, what does your student code of conduct look like? How often are you approving it without reading it? Rubber stamping it, if you will, because it goes from one year to the next. Well, it's impacting children, and we believe that to make sure that decisions you're making around student discipline is aligned with the whole child. And so when you get a special needs student and every single time there's no correlation to their special need and the behavior that's being exhibited, you might want to question that. And we all know that there are levels of student behavior that's impacting their education and their outcomes. So don't ignore those things. Don't rubber stamp them. Don't sort of blow it off. It's really important when we talk about safe and supportive schools and the factors that are associated with it. Next slide. So I want to make sure we cover as much as possible and make sure that you have time for questions. But in this area, this is what I meant by, are you looking at data that tell you that certain disciplinary action happens more in one part of the county or one part of the district than others? Boards should be asking, why is that? What's happening in those schools? What's happening with families in those schools? What's happening with the children in those schools? And so it is an important data point for the board to consider and think through and then ask those really critical questions around. And what goes with that, having a clear understanding of the safe and supportive schools is really understanding the behavior of students. And so, you're not expected to be psychologists or psychiatrists, but the board is expected to understand what are those difficult realities that are impacting students so that they're not able to perform well in school, and what is the board's role in that, and how do you hold the system accountable? So you should be asking the superintendent, why are there so many disciplinary recommendations in this part of the county, and what's happening with students? And we all have heard the stories of students having to work to support their families or having to look after younger children, all kinds of reasons that different behaviors show up among students and families in schools. And so it is the educator's job, believe it or not. We often say, oh, they can't do everything. That is true. But what they can do and what they should do is be able to address the needs of students who are in your care every single day, and the board, again, must hold the system accountable for that. So that root cause analysis is really important for the board to understand. Slide. So part of being able to do that is ensuring that there are culturally responsive student supports and understanding of student backgrounds, their families, how they show up in your district is really important. And then incorporating that competence into how we educate students and how we allow them to be their authentic selves in school environments. And then, we get a lot of pushback these days around, focusing on specifics of individuals. But it's important to know what helps a child learn. How does a child understand the culture of the school system in light of its own culture? You've heard the data that any adult in a school that looks like a child of the same race could be a positive outcome. It doesn't even have to be an educator. The research says a child seeing someone that looks like them in the educational environment, it supports their ability to have a better understanding of their educational experience. And so that's always important when we think about culturally responsive supports. And I say all of these because the board, again, wanting to outline and identify that the traditional things that you hear is not that is day to day, the board has no say in it. These are areas where the board definitely can directly impact outcomes for students in your decision making. So access and opportunity to high level curriculum. I put this one here because it goes back to when I started about sort of access to AP classes, but AP, IB, dual enrollment opportunities, these are all within the board's purview of approval. So superintendent, one, should be bringing these to you anyway to say, here are the offerings that we have in our district. And then you should be approving budgets and opportunities for students to access this work. And it's important because that's how we build the future of these students to be better, not only better citizens, but career and college ready. And so questions like, how does gifted and talented students get identified? I'm assuming that there's no district left in this country that identifies by teacher only. There should be testing that's going on. The board should be ensuring that. I bring it up because in a district like Plainfield, which had some of the same demographics as my own district, if a teacher did not recommend a student for talented and gifted placement, they didn't get it. And so that is, that's not good for students. That doesn't give students the opportunity to reach their full potential, as we often say. And the other important piece is, I come from a county where, at the time I was on the board, it was about 76% African American, but our teacher force was, a lot of teachers had been in the district for decades, and they didn't look like the students. And oftentimes the students that got recommended for talented and gifted look like the teachers. These are realities. And these are realities that if the board doesn't step in and do something, it will continue. And it's the board's job, it's the board's role to say, I want to make sure that there's testing, and there's a policy about testing. There's a policy about how talented and gifted students are selected. We had one situation where we closed schools in what we call the Inner Beltway, which is the area of high poverty, but there was a talented and gifted school in that area, and students were being bused from the suburbs to that school, identified as talented and gifted. And I would venture to say not one child from that community was in those schools. That is a travesty. That is a deficiency of the board. And so we have to own when we're not doing what we need to do as board members to ensure the outcomes that students need. And then how does the board ensure our special needs students are getting the appropriate supports? So oftentimes when we think about high-level curriculum, we're thinking, oh, we have to make sure the smart kids get what they need. Every single student is your responsibility as a board. How many public-private placements are in your district? How much are you paying to send students out of the district to get supports? Why are those supports being met in the district? Those are the areas that sometimes boards questions and the budget does not reflect it. So these are areas that, again, highly effective boards you holding the system accountable and having that satisfaction. I got to tell you this story real quick. My son, I ran into an old friend the other day who, I worked 23 years in corrections, and he used to prosecute my cases. I had to bring cases against, unfortunately, officers or civilians who were doing bad stuff. And he had come to me because I was on the board. His daughter was not meeting the age required. She would have had to wait another full year. But literally, she's in college right now at Howard University, and I ran into him and his wife, and he's telling a story to another parent about how this school board member fought and helped him know the rules, navigate the system, jump over the bureaucracy to get his child enrolled in school. That's board work, y'all. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be advocates. So I challenge you to don't forget that you are also advocates in this work. And so that means you gotta sometimes go that distance, holding the system accountable and the superintendent. Have good communication with your superintendent so he or she knows, you know, this board member is gonna advocate for these students, and so I need to have processes in place to ensure that they're getting what they need. Again, this is not a jab against the superintendent at all. It's just, what is your role as a board to make sure that kids get what they need? So how does the board ensure that IEPs are being followed, that the special ed department is in compliance? You're gonna get those reports. Of course, the state is gonna let you know if you're not in compliance with those things, and to ensure that you're getting regular reports so that you're effective as a board. And then collectively as colleagues, you're making sure that these things get done. And so I'm looking at my time. I think we're almost there. So the highly qualified teacher and educator effectiveness really gets to also what are the supports that you're providing that the teachers can be effective. What does evaluations look like in your district? You know, we went through a period where, you know, it was just taboo to talk about teacher evaluations, but I'll just venture to say, and I'll leave it alone, if teachers in your building are getting the exact same raving evaluation, and one teacher's students are knocking it out of the park and another teacher's students aren't doing so well, you might want to ask, what's wrong with this picture? And so we know that teacher evaluations can be controversial, but we also know that holding teachers accountable and the district accountable means outcomes for students. And so again, it's the board's role to do that. And so what policies do you have in place that ensures positive outcomes for students through teacher quality? And then what are the strategies that you can use to ensure that the district replicates where teachers are doing well? I don't know, whether it's peer reviews and things like that, but there are a number of different strategies that the board could look at for data to determine whether or not that's happening. Okay, and so as we look at this, I put this in here because it gets to your AP courses and your dual enrollment and things like that, and what the data that NSBA pulled on your behalf. So take a look at this when you get a moment. But compared with the state, I would say that the district needs more support and efforts to prepare students for career in college. And that just looks at the demographics and the qualifications and outcomes for teachers. Again, more data points for you to take in. What I'd like for you to do ideally is to take these 4 categories that we talk about and then do sort of an analysis yourself around the data and what does it look like compared to, these areas that we believe, demonstrate whether or not the board is effectively governing in the district. You can keep going. More data. And believe it or not, I've been in districts where the board doesn't know its data. I've said to superintendents when I work with them that one of the #1 complaints I get from boards is they ask questions and, they get pushback, like, why are you asking so many questions? Well, Mr. Superintendent, Madam Superintendent, that's their job. And of course, do it in a professional way. There should be structures in place, all those kinds of things, but it is the board's role to do that. And so looking at academics and both reading and math, again, board has to ask itself, is the return on our investment showing up the way we need it to be? Again, again, these are just, again, data points that you should take a look at. And, use some of these data points, and you can also, compare and contrast. Is this the data, this match what the superintendent has shared with you? Did we get something wrong? Did we look at a wrong data point? Just something the board should have more than cursory knowledge of the data for your district. And keep going. Keep going. This is your performance. Okay, and then finally, I wanted to share real quick the key work of school boards. It's essentially a publication of NSBA. We're gonna, in the next probably year or so, rewrite it. But essentially, it is, it's backed by research, but it identifies, again, the effective boards and how you lead the district in a way that shows improvement and sustainable growth and change. And at the center of the key work of school boards is student achievement. But basically, it's vision, it's accountability, relationships with superintendents and the district, and it's also looking at policy. You often hear, oh, the board's role is to hire a superintendent, approve the budget, and develop policy. Well, we try to drill down in these areas so that you have a really deep, not only cursory knowledge, but a deep knowledge and sense of how does the board's governance role show up in these areas. So that's the key work of school boards. And again, these are the main focus areas that we drill down in, and some districts or states will have us come and talk about each one in a day's session or several days session to really, again, drill down in each area and talk about what does it look like in Plainfield? What does it look like? Our communities are unique to us, and so this may show up in different ways in different communities. Accountability is where we spend a lot of time because it's overarching around everything that we talk about. Essentially, it just means taking your fair share of responsibility for student outcomes. You have a responsibility as a board, and you must know that your job specifically does impact the classroom. Oftentimes you're told, or it's talked about in a way that you're in this ether somewhere, and so you're not really reaching the classroom, and in fact, board work does reach the classroom. Strong focus on student results, standards. Oftentimes we talk about, over-testing and too many tests and things like that. And that's important, but we do have to hold the system accountable. And one way to do that is looking at data and student outcomes. It's not the only way. All right, so part of accountability is ensuring that there are excellent standards. The board, it starts with the board. If the district does not understand the priorities and commitment of the board, it will often not show up in the classroom or among teaching and learning. Okay, and keep going. Just giving you kind of an overview. And so when you think about accountability, you're asking these questions. How are achievement measures and results reported to the teachers, parents, and public? How are we talking about it in the community? What role do student achievement results play in the evaluation of the superintendent? We've had districts that say, oh, we evaluate our superintendent, but not on student outcomes, which is interesting. But what I'll say is, how many superintendents have you ever heard really getting terminated or leave the district because they're not producing the data they promised to produce? Oftentimes it's something else. It's board superintendent relationships. So these are really important when you talk about accountability. And then have we asked the superintendent and staff how staff, parents, and students learn what is expected of them? So this accountability piece is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the board. It's not just the superintendent. All of us are responsible for outcomes for students. And when you communicate that to the community, they have to then own some of the outcomes that come up. And it's important to do that so that they're not always, sort of putting it all on the district in a way, but what is the community responsibility to ensure that we're producing the environment for students to learn and to grow and to become the citizens we want them to. All right, I tried to stay within, not talk too much around this, but I wanted to leave time for questions or comments or concerns, and give you an opportunity if needed, to share back. Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you, thank you. Awesome presentation, but I expected nothing less. Do we have any questions from commissioners or our superintendent? Any questions, comments? You have a question?
No, I was just going to say, the information was very insightful, very helpful. Over my term serving on the board, you touched on many things that we've come across, and I think if we keep all these points at the top, of our minds and consideration when we make our decisions, I think we'll be on the right path. Continue to do the good work.
Commissioner Smith?
Hi, going back to your slide that said the average medium rent income in Plainfield, what year was that data from? Because it said something about 1,600. What year was that? It was like 2023 or something?
We can go back. I had Jing Hong, and she may not have been able to find 24. I don't know if whoever has the slides, can you go back?
It's fine, we
to
don't
that?
have to go back. I just
Oh.
wanted to know approximately.
Oh, okay. I will look at that slide. It's just not in front of me. Let me see.
Because I just wanted to make sure that the information was accurate, because as of August 2025, it's actually 1,850 is the medium average rent in Plainfield. So I
So it's
just
gone
kind of,
up.
yeah, it's a little off. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes when we do the data, Jing Hong will pull the most recent that she can find, and we usually put a disclaimer there for you to tell us, no, it's different now, but definitely we'll do some more digging and update that for sure.
This was great, though. Thank you.
Any more questions? I don't know if it's not so much a question. I was just interested in when you spoke about the policy to ensure positive positive outcomes to ensure teacher quality, and then what do teacher
Yes.
evaluations look like? And then even on a broader scope, what does staff evaluations look like overall? Like, as a board, we don't review evaluations, of course. We get an overview
Right.
and we get an update from our superintendent regarding teacher evaluations when we're discussing personnel and stuff like that, or when we ask questions. But I'm interested in knowing, like, how would the board do a deeper dive into ensuring that the teacher evaluations are as accurate as they need to be, or we hold the superintendent accountable, and we do know that he holds the administration accountable, but making sure that
Sure.
we're understanding the data from the teacher evaluations or from staff evaluations, because so many times evaluations are done and we don't really talk about it in depth until it becomes a personnel matter, and now we're looking at, well, what did the evaluations look like, and how was this missed? Because now we're discussing this, but the evaluations look like they were an awesome teacher or an awesome staff member. So I'm very interested to have the board work on a policy to ensure teacher quality, but I'm not sure if I completely understand from a board member standpoint what that looks like and how that pertains to maybe us getting too involved in the day-to-day, because that's a thing. I just want to make sure that we understand
Sure.
as a board.
Absolutely. So, for example, correct, the superintendent's responsibility is to make sure evaluations happen, well, first of all, let me start with making sure there are evaluations in the first place. You'd be surprised with the work that we do across the country, educators that are not evaluated and don't have an evaluation process. Most states, I think, require it. But what I would say from the board's perspective, so the board, for example, should be having a conversation with the superintendent about satisfactory evaluations. So when it's been about, I would say, probably 7 to 10 years now, when there was a big discussion around teacher evaluations and outcomes for students. And what we found was that educators, to your point, were mostly fired or terminated over conduct-related things, but not performance-related things that specifically address student outcomes. So some districts, for example, teachers get their contracts, they might be non-renewed, because of performance, and the superintendent bring that recommendation. If you're a district that approves any of that, it's not the same across the country. And so what the board's role is in teacher effectiveness and outcomes is to say to a superintendent or create a policy that satisfactory evaluations are not enough. And what I mean by that is, there are I'm sure your superintendent knows what I'm talking about. There are those evaluations. There are some districts where that's all you can give a teacher. If they're not, if they're not doing anything that's, egregious, they get a satisfactory, and everybody gets satisfactory. So again, as I gave an example, you want an evaluation that evaluates what's happening in the building, what's happening in the classroom. So you want levels in the evaluation process that ensures that you can look at categories of performance. So a teacher could get an evaluation that is based on the performance in the building, the performance in his or her classroom, as well as performance in other areas that the superintendent identifies for a particular subject, as opposed to an evaluation that says, unless you're got somebody's kid in the closet somewhere, you're gonna get a satisfactory. And unfortunately, that happens across the country, which, by the way, does absolutely nothing for student outcomes. How do I know that the classroom, the two teachers in the same building that are classrooms right next to each other, whose students aren't performing on the same level, how do I know what to do with that educator if they both have the same satisfactory evaluation? So our board policy, and what we'll do, Val, if you can take notes, we'll see if we can find you some to send to you to give you an example of what that looks like. But essentially, the board policy would require the district, as part of your vision and your mission for student outcomes, is that teachers be evaluated based on, I hate to use the word performance, because that triggers some people, but based on outcomes for students.
So thank you for that, because that helped, and I appreciate you sharing that you'll send us some examples, because I'm looking forward to that.
Sure.
But the second part to that, and listening to what you were saying, I know there are different evaluation tools, and if I'm correct, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like the Danielson framework, some of these evaluations specifically for teachers
Yes.
have nothing to do with per se conduct. They're strictly regarding performance in the classroom, which they should be. The majority of that should be, but then there are also levels to performance that aren't necessarily able to be evaluated through these different frameworks, because that's just how they're designed. So I don't know if it's and I just don't know. And this is something that I need to know.
Let me give you another quick example. How often have you heard, well, we don't really control how these kids show up. They come from poverty.
Yeah.
We can't help it. So our pushback to that is, but our expectations is that every student, every single child that comes through our building can and will learn. So we're not going to treat their poverty as an impediment to their growth. We might treat their poverty as a challenge, but how do we deal with that challenge to ensure that they still get what they need? We're not going to allow educators to pat kids on the head and say, oh, poor Jane, she comes from poverty. We're not going to give her the hard work. We're not going to give her rigorous coursework. We're not going to give her access to an AP class because she has too much stress on her and her family. We're not going to do that. No, that's not how we do it. We give kids what they need, and they will meet the challenge that we set in front of them. And so when we come, and that gets to the mediocrity, if you will, of how some districts treat children either who are of color and who are in poverty. And that happens all too often in certain districts, as opposed to districts where the, quote, expectation is high performance. High performance should be the expectation no matter what. And that comes out of evaluating teachers, ensuring that teachers have the tools that they need, and setting the stage for, this is what we expect you to believe too. So if you don't believe that children who show up in our buildings can do this work, you might be in the wrong profession.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any more questions
Absolutely.
or comments from the board?
I have a question, but if I could offer, I think these are all great points to obviously further the conversations we have as a collective. I wanted to offer a few suggestions that the board is going to continue on in terms of developing a policy or modifying any existing policy around teacher evaluations. So I would add that the data point that we should also consider are the student growth objectives, SGOs, that are developed annually by teachers. That's been a huge point of discussion in the state of New Jersey. If you are a tenured teacher, your SGO targets haven't changed year over year. There's been a freeze on that in the state of New Jersey, but for any non-tenured teachers, they are in fact still required to develop new SGO targets for the start of the school year. Those do become a part of the final evaluation for teachers. Those SGO targets results come back to the district around September so that they can be used as a part of the final evaluation.
Are they tiered?
So that is a collaborative process, that the development of SGOs. It is a process that takes place between the teacher and the building administrator. It focuses on the baseline data for students. So I think that is a good element for us to include. I would also add that as a part of our recent administrative retreat, we did have the team from the Danielson Group come in to conduct professional development on the framework for teaching, which has 4 major components in which we evaluate our instructors on. But we did notice there was a challenge for us last year with one of the non-renewals that was proposed. Traditionally in the district, those certain components were only made available in the evaluation process when you got to the summative. And I think that really, we tied our hands behind our backs because there's some areas that are really critical. We consider them to be power components. So as a part of the training the professional development we recently completed, we are shifting to the current version of the Danielson framework and the observation rubric, but we are also identifying power components from the evaluation tool, and the power components will be a part of every observation for a teacher in our school district, no matter if it's the first, second, or third during the course of the year, so that we don't miss out on any of those areas that we believe have I think more of a stronger impact, if you will, on student outcomes, whether that be lesson planning, creating the right learning environment for students, et cetera. So we will share that information with the board and find out if there's any additional feedback as we finalize it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hassan. And thank you, Virginia, very much. This was a very great session. We've taken a lot from it, and we look forward to having more sessions with you in the future for our board and future boards.
Okay. All right, you guys take care. Have a good evening.
All right, you
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. You gonna make us wait? So no.
I will say this, because I agree that the session was very powerful. The data slides were the reason why we don't have time for politics. The data slides are the reason why we don't have time for personal. The data slides are the reason why there has to be one, what is it,
One
Mr.
team,
Hassan?
one vision.
Team, one vision.
One team, one vision. I don't care if y'all rumble in the jungle in the back about who said what to whom. At the end of the day, the center and the focus has to be on providing the best opportunities for students in Plainfield. And it seems like y'all collectively as a board, because 7 people are here. Oh, my phone done, my watch done turned off at 9:22 at night, right? To do that on Labor Day weekend. I keep emphasizing that because I want y'all to understand that that's a significant commitment. The answer could have been no, but it was yes.
Praise God.
Right? Because you're here after working full days and full weeks. So I know the passion is there. I know the commitment is there. I know the desire is there. We got to get to the point
where we can collectively agree about the norms in which we establish as a board so we can govern effectively. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to get into that tomorrow. But for tonight, I'm going to ask everybody to take a minute and think about either a word, a sentence, or a phrase that was very impactful for our time together this evening. And that'll be how we wrap up. That's not the minute. I'll start my timer now. Oh, Lord. I'm gonna give y'all 30 more seconds because this is my babysitter calling.
Responsible adult.
Can we leave our stuff here for tomorrow morning? I gotta take it home and bring it back. Okay, can I get a locker for the night? I need a locker. Got it, my transcript.
Okay, all is well. My kids are not giving her the business. Okay, so, if we wouldn't mind popcorning around, hopefully everyone will be willing to share. Can we start with you, Commissioner Johnson?
One of the things you said about, there was 3 points, but I forgot the third one.
Mm-hmm.
It was like give the person in the community a voice and help them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, but I forgot the third one. But that's not me, because obviously in the community, a lot of people say stuff. And it's, I guess it's my responsibility to, if nothing else, be able to download what's going on and then be able to decipher it to them in a way they can understand it. Sometimes, I mean, even when I say it, I'll be like, I don't know what none of this stuff is, but I'm able to process it, and if I'm able to tell someone else, so they don't think we're just, oh, we understand, okay, give them a stone face in one ear after the other. So I have to do a better job of processing everything so I can explain it as if I'm talking to a fifth grader.
Thank you. Commissioner Malone?
Word collaboration.
Okay. Work together. Thank you. Mrs. Hambry? Trust and respect. VP Webb?
Yeah. So how I feel refreshed. I feel encouraged. I feel that, like I said, the information shared by the presenters aligns with a lot of the things that we've been doing in the district, and also, quite honestly, with the governance plan that has been established by Madam President just over the last year or so. The opportunity to learn these things and then put them into practice has been very helpful.
Thank you. Attorney Shabazz?
I would say transparency, but
Okay.
more so in the way that everyone communicates with each other. Kind of going back to your first exercise when you peeled away all the different things, it's kind of the things that make us who we are. And as the lawyer, I often get to hear, and I'm not saying this board, it's all boards, it's everybody I've ever represented. I get to hear how the superintendent feels and who that person is, and how sometimes those feelings they don't feel good about the way the board may be making them feel, and then you talk to the board, and they don't feel good about the way each other makes each other feel, or the superintendent. But what I often find out is I'm really the only person that ever heard this. No one has actually sat down and managed each other in that transparent way of saying, let me explain a little more about the levels to my onions so that perhaps we can communicate more effectively and then ultimately get the job done.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Very transparent. Madam Board Chair?
I would say communication is a big one. Communication is key, but there's like levels to it. So what you mentioned, well, actually, Dr. Harris, what he mentioned about like listening to the other person, and of course that goes back to the peeling of the onion, but then listening, because a good listener, that translates to a good communicator, but then also how you're delivering the information, going back to
The trash can?
the trash can.
His steak and sweet potato and cream spinach?
So it works both ways. Like you can hear somebody but not really be listening intentionally, and that hinders that communication. But then you can also not deliver the information in a way that the person is going to receive it, so they're still not listening. And they may not even be hearing you because they don't want to hear you because you're not delivering it the right way. So that's a big deal for me, and I'm reflecting on that a lot individually for myself as a leader of leaders, and then for our board of leaders, because communication, unfortunately, is a big challenge for us in this current climate and space. And I feel like that's a result to a lot of varying factors. But
Thank you.
that's what's
I
up.
appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that.
When we were off to the side, you said, share the story, but you had this tagline. You didn't major in shucking.
Oh, or minor
you
in
didn't
jive.
Minor in jiving. That stood out. What I heard in that was integrity. All right, and that was my takeaway. For me, that is, I think, the value that I probably hold nearest and dearest to myself as an individual. So I believe once we lose that, all bets are off. We have to obviously approach our work with flexibility, also with gratitude, humility, and grace. But I believe the one thing that we have to be uncompromising with is integrity.
Thank you. Mr. Cox?
So clearly, Madam President took the liberty that is bestowed upon her, and she kind of went into a couple different buckets. And I was
She took yours?
I was hoping somebody
Just
wasn't
like
going to
you took
say
my
it.
ginger ale.
I did take the ginger ale per the scenario in February. Yeah, I did.
You know, she really didn't tell me about that. Did you really take her ginger
She has
ale?
this thing with Canada Dry ginger ales.
I told him, I said, she doesn't even know that about me.
The fact that you chose that as your
It was
scenario,
spot
no,
on.
like literally.
That's why I said you can't use that. That's a big deal.
Okay.
We'll have to tell you another story at another time. Don't give her no sweats either. It's gonna be a problem. So, moment of vulnerability. I've been through a lot personally in the last 2 to 3 years. And so everybody has heard of the love languages, right? So what was most impactful was the story when you were talking to Commissioner Johnson, because it made me think of the love languages. So you could give somebody love in the way you want to give love, but if they don't receive love in that manner, you might as well have smacked their mother, cut their arm off, you took all the money out their bank account, right? If someone needs a heart transplant or a kidney transplant in the next 30 days, you can give them $100 million, but guess what? It's not gonna mean nothing if they can't do nothing with it because they're not here to spend it. And so what I heard is, you can show up how you are, but more than anything, it's important to figure out who you're showing up for and why you're showing up for them so that you could give them what they truly need.
Thank you. Dr. Harris? Oh. Thank you. Ms. Smith?
So, the consistency piece really spoke to me personally. I'm one of those people where if I'm not feeling it, the day stops. Like, I believe in unlimited PTO. So, your example about Con Edison and how you just can't not show up, I feel like you were speaking to my time in attendance. But on a data point that really stuck to me was that 75.9% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and it's really up to us to advocate not only for high-level curriculum, but to make sure they have all of the resources. And when they were like skipping past the charts of how many of our students receive SNAP and things like that. That's why I highlighted the rent medium. I wasn't being tedious, but I really want to shine light on that, because we can't say the rent medium is $1,600 if 75.9, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really a passion of mine.
Right.
So making sure not only do they have a high-level curriculum, but the resources, and being okay with being the person that asks a lot of questions, that really stuck with me. So thank you.
You're welcome. And please let me say this. I genuinely, heart of hearts, did not know about that Canada Dry. And I genuinely was not talking to you because I didn't know it. I move with the spirit, okay? And so I guess that was what was supposed to be delivered. You're welcome. I will say, one, thank y'all for doing this, and two, thank you for showing up, right? Like, it's late, we're about to wrap up, and it's not lost on me that this work is significant, right? Like, y'all go back after Labor Day, my kids have been in school since August 18th, right? I know. Oh, yeah, trust me. That said, like, it's real time and it's real talk. And so I am very encouraged that you all are willing to come together respectfully, to regain trust, and move the district forward. And just as an aside, nothing grinds my gears. Well, yes, there are things that grind my gears. But specifically when folks talk about evaluation in Danielson, that grinds my gears, because Charlotte Danielson did not design that framework to be evaluative. It was supposed to be supportive. But this obsession with being able to measure everything quantitatively is how we got here. And so we got to work with what we got to work with. And if that's what we have to work with, that's what we have to work with. And to your point about the demographics of your district, there are very real factors. Poverty can't be the crutch, and it's a very real thing, a very real thing. And so I think that you as a board also have to keep in mind that it is not one size fit all. What is needed in North Plainfield, number one, do y'all govern all of, this is just what?
Just Plainfield.
Just Plainfield, okay. So what is needed in one school in Plainfield versus another school 2 doors down may not be the same. And equity, which is on your website, because I went and I took a look at the mission and the vision, equity means fair. It doesn't mean equal. So with that, I bid y'all adieu, and I gift you, in the words of my auntie Maxine Waters, your hour and your 53 minutes back.
We're not done yet,
Okay?
but we will be short. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Wade. And I will now entertain a motion to go into public comments.
I'd like to make a motion to go into public comment.
We don't. Yeah, she said we still have to do it. All right, I'll now entertain a motion to go into public comment.
I made the motion already.
Second.
Been properly moved by Vice President Commissioner Webb and seconded by Commissioner Smith. That we now go into public comment at this time. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Yes.
Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. I'll read the disclosure. At business meetings, privilege of the floor will be provided for 30 minutes for the public prior to committee reports. Members of the public in attendance will have the opportunity to raise concerns during this period of the meeting. Members of the public may speak once for a maximum period of 3 minutes by the clock. This time is not transferable from one individual to another. Privilege of the floor is now open.
All right. Nick, do we have anybody online that has their hand raised for public comment? Okay, tonight I'm going to do the one online first, and then I will go to the two members that we have present with us. So can you queue up the one person online? Laura Miranda Brown. Ms. Brown?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all again after a short summer break. First of all, I found this evening's session to be really fascinating, and I really hope that everyone took it all in and we can start out a new school year in a new direction. And to that end, one of my questions has to do with budgeting. We spent a lot of time earlier this year dealing with and talking about the budget. But I have two real questions, and the first is how come we are only approving the summer budget, including bus drivers, security guards, athletics, literally everything about the summer program at the end of August? Why wasn't this part of the budget discussion earlier this year? Why wasn't it previously agreed to and worked on? It's just really a question of timing and why it's waited to the very last minute to be handled. And the second question is about the Kane program to get college credits. In reading through the agreement that was posted with the agenda item, it looks like each credit will be $200 per student, which is fine, seems totally reasonable, together with whatever the books and material costs are for the district to absorb. Again, seems totally reasonable. But a 4-credit class is $800 per student, and there's nothing in the supporting documents to give the public an idea of how many students we can expect to take advantage of this program, what that will mean for our budget moving forward, and what our enrollment goals are, right? Do we want 4 students? Is it worth our time to be doing this? I would argue yes. So is money well spent for students to get a good quality education, but what are our goals in terms of enrollment? How do we plan on growing the program? A little bit more information about that program would be very helpful. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Nobody else online? All right, now we'll take members of the public who have public comment to the mic, please.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, we can hear you.
Catherine Balch, 1314 Highland Avenue. I found the evening also fascinating. I thought both of the speakers were very dynamic and hit home several times about things that we need to be concerned about. I was especially interested in the evaluations discussion for teachers and other staff. So I have a question about evaluations. Are counselors also evaluated for performance? Okay. And also, and in terms of holding people accountable, so students accountable for their work, and the board accountable for the board work. Several people have mentioned to me that they, despite the fact that their family members would not be very happy about
attending even more meetings in a month. But because board meetings have been condensed into just one meeting per month, we feel sort of left out of information and discussions about the kinds of issues that are facing the board. Previously, I think there were 2 meetings per month. The first meeting was to discuss requests and purchases and all that. And it seems like, and then the second meeting per month was to vote on what the board decided after discussing them during the first meeting. So that now that there's just 1 meeting per month, it seems like some of those discussions are happening sort of, I don't know if it's an executive session, but they don't seem to be happening in the public, so that we don't get a chance to really understand what kinds of decisions you need to make, what kind of issues are in front of you, what kind of challenges you're facing in terms of spending money on X, Y, or Z. So that's a request from me and some other people that the board meeting structure go back to 2 meetings instead of 1 per month. My husband's going to kill me for saying that. Okay. Let's see. I guess that was it for that part of the meeting. And then so I have 3 things. So the valuations, and then the second part was I wanted to let you know that the League of Women Voters is hosting a forum for the Board of Ed candidates. It will happen on October 23rd, which is a Thursday, I believe. More information will be forthcoming. That was the save the date. And then I wanted to let you know about.
1 second, because your time is up.
May I make a motion to extend her time?
Been properly moved by Commissioner Smith and seconded by Commissioner Dr. Harris to extend Mrs. Balch's time. Heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, have the same right? Motion carries.
Ms. Balch, you may continue.
So I'll just make this very brief. I just want to let you know some numbers about the lunchbooks program, which the district sponsors. We've had, it was a very busy spring. We had a lot of volunteers in Stillman and other schools reading to students and passing out books. So the combination of the classroom readers, the Summer Learning Academy appearances, visits to schools to hand out books, and the events. So we had a total of 30 volunteer visits between February and August. There were a total number of 3,538 students who were served, and there were 6,143 books given away.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else in the public that would like to come up for public comment? Seeing none and hearing none.
I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Hembry. The board now closed public comment. Heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carries.
All right,
Make a
I'll now
motion to
entertain a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Smith to now adjourn this meeting in the public. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned at 9:47 p.m.
Thank you all for attending the first day of our board retreat on this fine Friday evening. I'm looking forward to seeing you all bright and early in the morning.
As you tell.
Breakfast is at 9.
No
We will
powdered
start
eggs.
promptly at 10.
No powdered eggs.
I don't know what's on the menu, but it will be edible.
Thank you so much for everyone for coming, participating.
Great.
I can hold this pen.